After buying and selling over 600 lots, I've learned the best looking deals often come with the worst surprises. And not discovering these early has cost me tens of thousands of dollars. So in this video, I'll show you 10 land buying traps to avoid so your great deal doesn't turn into a costly nightmare. Trap number 1, you finally find it. A peaceful, affordable lot that checks every box. Quiet area, near the water, the kind of place you picture building your dream cabin. But then the first big storm hits. Your yard floods, your insurance bill spikes, and your builder says you'll need to raise the house 6 feet just to meet code. So what happened? Well, you just bought inside a special flood hazard area. That's FEMA's designation for land with a high risk of flooding. And if you buy here without realizing it, you could be stuck with flood insurance, elevation requirements, and massive building costs. So how do you avoid it? Go to FEMA.gov and enter the property's address. If it's in a special flood hazard area, ask the seller for an elevation certificate. It'll tell you how high you'll need to build and whether it's worth it. Trap number 2, you check the flood map. You're outside the special flood hazard area. No rivers nearby, no creeks. You think, I'm good. You build your dream cabin, but one day it rains hard and suddenly there's water rising straight through your basement floor. So what happened? Well, you flooded from below. That's groundwater flooding, and it happens when the water table rises after heavy rain and pushes water up into your home from underneath. Most flood maps won't show it, but here's the worst part. Standard flood insurance may not cover it. So how do you avoid it? Well, if the land is low-lying near wetlands or has a history of soggy ground, don't ignore it. Ask nearby neighbors if they have ever had water come up through the ground. Walk the lot after a heavy rain and see if it drains or stays swampy. And if you're building, make sure your contractor knows how to plan for groundwater mitigation and not just surface drainage. Trap number 3, you meet the seller. They seem friendly. They say they have lived next door for years and know exactly where the property lines are. Everything looks legit. So you buy the land, but fast forward 10 years, you find out part of their garage actually crosses 9 feet over your property line. No permits, no apologies. Now you're in court dealing with an expensive civil suit. So how do you avoid this scenario? Well, don't rely on what the seller or even the neighbor says. Get a boundary survey before you buy. A survey will show you exactly where your land begins and ends, and whether someone else has built on it. It might cost a few $100, but it could save you years of legal battles and tens of thousands in losses. And if a new survey isn't in your budget, check county records. Older surveys are often already on file and free to access. Trap number 4, the price looks amazing. You're thinking, how is this land still available? It says 20 acres and it's dirt cheap. But after you buy, you find out the truth. You don't actually own those 20 acres. You just own a fraction of the whole thing shared with several other people. Welcome to undivided interest land. Why is that bad? Because you can't build, you can't fence it, and sometimes you can't even sell your share without everyone else's permission. But here's the scary part. Even the title company might not flag it. So how do you avoid it? Read the deed carefully before you close. Look for terms like undivided interest or fractional ownership. And if anything looks unclear, talk to a real estate attorney before you move forward. Trap number 5. You find a big affordable lot, tons of space, great price, and it's right next to the railroad tracks. You think, no problem, I can deal with a little train noise, but what you don't see could cost you way more than some earplugs. Why? Because if that land was ever part of a rail yard or maintenance area, there's a real chance the soil is contaminated with chemicals, heavy metals, or fuel residue. And here's the kicker. No one's legally required to tell you unless you ask. Even the title company might not catch it. So how do you avoid it? If the land borders or overlaps an old railroad line, do your homework. Search county records or check old aerial maps to see how the land was used in the past. And if anything looks off or the deal seems too good to be true, consider ordering a Phase 1 environmental site assessment. Trap number 6. You buy a beautiful wooded lot, mature trees, tons of shade, peaceful views. You picture your kids running through the forest. But a few years from now, a stranger shows up with chainsaws and suddenly he's cutting down trees on your land and you can't do a thing about it. Why? Because the timber timber rights were sold off decades ago, and no one told you they still belong to someone else. What does that mean? Well, they can harvest timber from your land, you can't stop them, and you get zero compensation. But here's the kicker. They can even demand access to your property to do it. So how do you avoid it? Before you buy any wooded lot, ask if timber rights are included. If the deed is vague, get it clarified in writing. And if timber rights were sold off years ago, ask when or if they expire. Trap number 7. You're picturing open fields, a few goats, maybe a garden or orchard. You buy the land thinking this will be perfect for homesteading. But a few months in, your plants won't grow. Your animals start getting sick. Something's wrong and no one can figure out why. So you test the soil just to be safe, and that's when you get the bad news. The ground is contaminated. Old chemicals, heavy metals, maybe runoff from a nearby industrial site. Whatever it is, it's in the soil and it's poisoning your dream before it even begins. So how do you avoid it? If you're planning to graze animals or grow food, get a basic soil test before you buy. It's inexpensive, easy to do, and could save you thousands in vet bills or worse. Contact your local extension office or use a certified lab. They'll tell you where to send samples and how to read the results. Trap number 8. You're walking a beautiful coastal lot, ocean views, salty breeze, steps from the beach. It feels like paradise, but what you don't realize is you're standing in a velocity zone, also called a V zone. What's a V zone? It is FEMA's highest risk coastal flood zone, where water doesn't just rise, it crashes in with wave force. And here's the problem. If you buy here without knowing the rules, you could be forced to build on stilts, pay sky-high insurance, and follow strict building codes that add tens of thousands of dollars to your budget. So how do you avoid it? Go to FEMA.gov and look up the property address. If it's marked as V, VE, or V1 through V30, it's in a velocity zone, and that means more risk, more cost, and more red tape. Trap number 9. You find a quiet, affordable lot off a dirt road, surrounded by trees. No neighbors, no noise, no HOA. It feels like freedom, but then you start pricing out the build. And suddenly, you're looking at $20,000 to run power from the nearest pole, another $15,000 for a well, and don't forget the septic system, which can cost even more if the soil isn't right. That cheap land just got a lot more expensive. So how do you avoid it? Before you buy, call the local utility providers, power, water, gas, and ask, is the service available at the property line? If not, how far is the nearest connection point? What's the estimated cost to bring utilities in? And if you'll need a well or septic, talk to the county health department about soil tests and permits. Trap number 10. You find the perfect lot. It's quiet, wooded, tucked away in nature. Exactly the kind of place where you imagine building a cabin or homestead. You picture the view, the peace, maybe even a little garden. But then you try to get insurance. And the quotes are outrageous, if anyone will cover you at all. Your lender starts asking for special clearances, and your builder tells you the materials alone could blow your budget. So what happened? Well, you bought in a fire risk zone. These are areas marked by the state as high or very high fire hazard severity zones. Places where wildfires are more likely and where just building a home can cost you thousands extra. So how do you avoid it? Before you buy land, especially in states like California, Colorado, or Arizona, check your local fire hazard maps. Ask the county if the property falls in a designated risk zone, and always call your insurance provider to get a quote before you close. But here's the thing. Every smart land buyer knows the real cost of a deal isn't in the price, it's in the surprises, and the worst ones don't show up until after you buy. So watch this video next so you don't end up with a lot that's zoned perfectly for mosquitoes and regret.